The end of the armored era. For decades, armored columns were the ultimate symbol of military power. Rows of tanks advancing across open terrain meant one thing: breakthrough. From World War II to the Cold War, massed armor was designed to punch through defenses, collapse front lines, and dominate the battlefield with speed and shock. But today, something has changed. On the battlefields of Ukraine, Russian armored columns are being destroyed before they even reach their objectives. Tanks worth millions are neutralized by drones costing a fraction of the price. Entire formations stall, trapped by mines, surveillance, and precision strikes. What once represented unstoppable force now risks becoming a predictable target. So what happened? Why are armored assaults failing in modern warfare? Is this the collapse of traditional mechanized doctrine, or simply a brutal phase of adaptation? In this video, we'll break down the technology, the tactics, and the doctrinal crisis reshaping 21st century warfare. Because this isn't just about Russia, it's about the future of war itself. Why Russian armored columns no longer work for decades. Armored columns symbolized offensive momentum. From World War II's deep battle doctrine to Cold War mechanized thrusts across Europe, massed armor represented shock, speed, and breakthrough. The core idea was simple: concentrate firepower, punch through defensive lines, exploit the breach, and collapse the enemy's rear. But on today's battlefield in Ukraine, that doctrine is unraveling. Russian armored columns, once designed to overwhelm defenses through mass and mobility, are increasingly failing to reach even their initial objectives. The reasons are technological, tactical, and structural. Modern warfare has shifted the balance dramatically in favor of the defender. The first major factor is precision anti-tank weaponry. Unlike previous generations of anti-armor systems, modern guided missiles allow defenders to strike vehicles at extended ranges with high accuracy. Portable systems can be concealed in tree lines, buildings, or trenches. The moment an armored vehicle enters visible terrain, it becomes targetable. The range advantage that tanks once enjoyed has eroded. Instead of leading an assault, they are often destroyed before infantry can properly deploy. Second, the battlefield itself has become engineered against mobility. Minefields, anti-tank ditches, and concrete dragon's teeth obstacles funnel armored vehicles into narrow corridors. These predictable lanes eliminate maneuver flexibility. Once forced into these routes, columns become easy targets for pre-sighted artillery and drone-guided strikes. What was once a fast-moving spearhead becomes a slow procession through a kill zone. But perhaps the most transformative change is the rise of persistent drone surveillance. In earlier wars, surprise was achievable. Units could mass forces behind cover, exploit fog or darkness, and launch sudden offensives. Today, reconnaissance drones provide near-continuous battlefield visibility. Thermal imaging systems detect engines, heat signatures, and troop concentrations even in low-visibility conditions. Every movement is observed, every build-up is tracked. This surveillance removes the operational surprise that armored doctrine depends on. Instead of smashing through unprepared defenses, columns are monitored from the moment they leave staging areas. Artillery units can adjust fire dynamically based on real-time drone feedback. FPV, first-person view drones, can pursue and strike individual vehicles with precision. Armor is no longer just fighting ground forces. It is fighting an aerial sensor network. Another critical vulnerability emerges during movement toward the front line. Many losses do not occur during direct engagement, but during transit. As armored vehicles advance along roads or narrow terrain, they are highly exposed. When one vehicle is destroyed, it blocks the path behind it. This creates bottlenecks, static targets trapped under artillery and drone observation. Momentum collapses, offensive tempo dies. Instead of breakthrough warfare, columns stall under layered defensive systems. Recent battlefield examples illustrate this shift clearly. In one sector, Two Russian infantry fighting vehicles carrying 14 soldiers attempted to exploit dense fog to approach Ukrainian positions. In previous conflicts, such conditions might have provided concealment. However, thermal drone reconnaissance detected troop dismounting activity. Within an hour, Ukrainian forces neutralized both vehicles and their infantry using FPV drones and coordinated artillery fire. Fog no longer guarantees invisibility. In another instance, a Russian column was identified by thermal drones operated by Ukraine's 412th Nemesis Brigade. Before reaching assault positions, kamikaze drones immobilized lead vehicles. Once halted, the rest of the formation became stationary targets. The attack disintegrated before meaningful contact occurred. These incidents highlight a deeper doctrinal crisis. Russian offensive theory traditionally relied on synchronized armored pushes supported by artillery and mechanized infantry. Armor provided protection, shock, and mobility. Now, instead of enabling breakthroughs, armored vehicles attract concentrated fire. Their thermal signatures, size, and predictable movement patterns make them priority targets. This reversal has profound implications. When armor becomes a liability rather than an advantage, the entire offensive framework destabilizes. Mechanized thrusts slow. Infantry advances without armored protection become exposed and costly. Gains, if achieved, lack operational depth. There is no rapid exploitation phase, only incremental, attritional progress. Facing mounting losses and diminishing returns, Russian forces increasingly resort to dispersed small unit infiltration tactics. Rather than large armored formations, smaller infantry groups attempt to probe weak points. While this reduces the immediate visibility of mass targets, it sacrifices speed and breakthrough capability. Progress becomes fragmented and slow. Casualties remain high. Strategic coherence weakens. In essence, modern battlefield transparency has rewritten the rules. The combination of precision anti-armor weapons, engineered obstacles, drone surveillance, and real-time fire correction has created a defensive ecosystem where armored columns struggle to survive. What once symbolized unstoppable force now often signals predictable vulnerability. The transformation is not merely technological, it is doctrinal. The offensive dominance of massed armor, a pillar of 20th century warfare, faces a 21st century countermeasure environment that neutralizes its core advantages. And unless adaptation outpaces innovation, armored columns may remain relics of a battlefield era that no longer exists. Case studies: how drone warfare dismantles mechanized assaults. If Chapter 1 explained why armored columns are structurally vulnerable, the battlefield case studies show how that vulnerability is exploited in practice. Modern drone warfare is not simply an added threat to mechanized assaults. It is the organizing principle behind their systematic dismantling. The transformation begins with reconnaissance. In previous wars, detecting an approaching armored column required forward observers, radar, or aerial sorties that were limited in duration and vulnerable themselves. Today, small, inexpensive drones provide persistent surveillance over wide sectors. They operate quietly, can hover for extended periods, and relay live video feeds to artillery units kilometers away. This constant aerial presence ensures that armored units rarely move unseen. The result is what military analysts call battlefield transparency. There are fewer blind spots. Concealment is temporary. Even when vehicles use terrain masking or adverse weather, thermal imaging and multi-layered drone coverage reduce the effectiveness of traditional camouflage techniques. One illustrative example occurred in the July sector. Two Russian infantry fighting vehicles carrying 14 soldiers attempted to exploit heavy fog to approach Ukrainian defensive positions. Historically, fog would have provided an ideal cover for mechanized movement. Reduced visibility disrupts targeting systems and complicates coordination. But the defenders adapted. Ukrainian drone operators relied on thermal reconnaissance systems capable of detecting heat signatures, through low visibility conditions. Engines, recently dismounted troops, and even disturbed ground emitted enough thermal contrast to reveal movement. The moment the infantry began dismounting, drone feeds transmitted precise coordinates to artillery and FPV units. Within an hour, both vehicles were destroyed. The infantry element was neutralized before establishing a foothold. The attempted breakthrough never matured into a sustained engagement. This example illustrates a crucial shift. Mechanized assaults now operate inside a sensor web. Every stage of movement, assembly, approach, dismount, and consolidation is exposed to aerial monitoring. Another revealing case involved the 412th Nemesis Brigade. In this incident, a Russian armored column was detected by thermal reconnaissance drones long before it reached Ukrainian lines. Instead of waiting for close engagement, Ukrainian forces targeted the column during transit. Kamikaze drones struck lead vehicles first, immobilizing them. This tactic is deliberate. Destroying the front vehicle halts forward movement. Targeting the rear vehicle seals the formation in place. What remains in between is a compressed cluster of armored vehicles with limited maneuver options. Once immobilized, the column becomes a static artillery target. Drone operators adjust fire in real time. If initial artillery salvos fall short, corrections are transmitted instantly. FPV drones then strike surviving vehicles individually, often targeting engine compartments or exposed troop carriers. Within minutes, the formation ceases to function as a coordinated unit. The tactical logic is devastatingly efficient. Modern FPV drones are inexpensive compared to armored vehicles. A single drone costing a fraction of a tank's value can disable or destroy multi-million-dollar equipment. This cost asymmetry alters the economic logic of armored warfare. Offensive forces must risk high-value assets in environments saturated with low-cost precision threats. But drone warfare's impact goes beyond destruction. It shapes behavior. Knowing they are constantly observed, armored crews may hesitate to maneuver aggressively. Commanders face uncertainty about whether movements are being tracked. This psychological pressure slows operational tempo. Caution replaces momentum. The battlefield becomes a layered defense system. 1. Reconnaissance drones detect movement. 2. Artillery units receive coordinates and begin preemptive fire. 3. FPV drones target specific vehicles that survive initial bombardment. 4. Minefields and obstacles restrict escape routes. Each layer reinforces the others. Importantly, these engagements often occur before direct contact between infantry units. Mechanized warfare traditionally depends on shock action, rapid movement overwhelming defenders before they can react. Drone-guided systems invert that dynamic. Reaction precedes contact. Another dimension is the elimination of surprise at scale. In past conflicts, armored thrusts could achieve operational breakthroughs by concentrating forces at a single weak point. Surprise allowed attackers to achieve local superiority. Today, massing forces itself generates detectable signatures, engine heat, dust trails, electronic emissions, and logistical buildup. Drones pick up patterns days before an assault begins. This persistent monitoring also affects logistical convoys. Fuel trucks, ammunition carriers, and recovery vehicles are equally vulnerable. Once supply elements are targeted, armored units face operational paralysis, even if they survive initial contact. Without fuel or ammunition resupply, momentum fades quickly. Moreover, destroyed vehicles create physical barriers. When a burning armored vehicle blocks a narrow road, following units cannot easily bypass it. Engineers may attempt recovery, but recovery vehicles themselves become targets. The stalled column becomes an exposed cluster of heat signatures visible from above.